Here we are. Right, hi Kim, how you doing? Thank you for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it.
No, welcome. Hi, Adam. Great to see you.
No, you too.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been talking before this. We picked a topic that is definitely something that needs to be spoken about, and I think it's kind of getting out in the media more. And it's like menopause.
It's certainly a subject that I'm very passionate about, and I really want to say I think you've been incredibly brave, because it's a subject that people are very shy about. It's a taboo subject. It's not talked about, and on top of all that, what women have is a huge amount of shame attached to being menopausal, and that's for many reasons. But having the taboo about it's like they try and suppress everything, so they can't be open, they can't be honest, they're reluctant to say how they're feeling, and of course that just then makes them more anxious, more stressed, more worried, more apprehensive about what they're doing. I'm very passionate about supporting women and their well-being. It's something that every woman will go through in her life. It's not an illness. It's a natural stage in every woman's life. Every menopause journey is different, so not one size fits all. There is a tendency for the medical profession to medicalize it as an illness that needs sorting, that needs fixing. Many of my wonderful female clients that come to me say, I went to my GP because I was struggling with insomnia, so he gave me sleeping pills. And end of. I'm struggling with anxiety, so they gave me some beta blockers or the chosen whatever, or even antidepressants. The menopause is not an illness. However, sometimes some of the symptoms are severe enough that they do need some medical assistance.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like your clients going for the menopause, going to the doctors because they've got symptoms, is it, from the menopause?
Yeah.
And they're being prescribed drugs and medication that's got nothing to do with the menopause, that's making them feel a certain.
Well, it has got a lot to do with the menopause. I mean, a classic, if I can read you down the list, if you like, of menopause symptoms, and anybody that's interested and wants to find out a bit more, they're very welcome to email me. It's kimthomasken@aol.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions that they may have. But we go from anxiety to brain fog to low mood to loss of confidence, loss of anxiety. As we've seen in the article today in the Daily Mail, the celebrity that is in the Daily Mail today is saying she lost her confidence to drive. She was so anxious that she couldn't drive. And that's just one. You take a woman who is now extending her work life, because historically, women didn't used to, but they are now in the workplace for as long as. So perhaps previously, when the menopause hit, there weren't so many questions being asked of that woman to achieve. Now you're going on into your 70s and still working for many women. And so when they hit the menopause, they're still expected to keep that momentum going. And there is no consideration for the changes that are happening. And actually, 1 in 4 women will look to leave work early, as in have to quit their job because they cannot continue. The workforce will be missing out on, all the experience, all the wisdom, all the continuity, because this group of very experienced people are having to leave because the workplace hasn't provided sufficient support for them.
Mm.
And, you know, we have the Equality Act now, which came out in 2010. And that Equality Act says you cannot discriminate against a woman because of the menopause. And so, you know, the Health and Safety Act is coming in and it is supporting. Very interestingly, if we look at organisations that have been taken to tribunals by women who feel that they have lost their job unfairly, they are seen as a disability. They're using the disability law. So they're saying that the menopause is a disability. Well, a menopause woman is not disabled, you know, and that's a stigma that they are being labelled with. So you can see how it's very challenging if that's how she's going to be portrayed, why she would want to continue in that workplace. And there's a lot of bullying goes on in workplaces as well when women, you know, hot flushes is a classic. Everybody knows hot flushes as a, or maybe you don't because you're young and you're a male, but you know, it's a horrible, horrible place for a woman to be. You know, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she's in an oven.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're in a meeting and you've got that hot flush, and then a sentence goes missing, and you start to panic, and you can see your work colleagues, and they're all nudging each other. You know, she fears for the security of her job. And you know, if more and more people understand the menopause, are understanding about the menopause, then workplaces can be made more menopause friendly. That they can make huge changes and differences, so that the work experience for that woman is more comfortable, and she can then go through the change, go through those challenges that she needs to with the support, and then you know at some point things will start to settle down again and back to where she's feeling, and again that can take years for some people, months for others, because we have perimenopause, menopausal, and then postmenopause. So there are three, you know, divided, and I think the perimenopause is the one that isn't recognised. That people just will say, "Oh, I can't sleep. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. Oh, I've got social anxiety. Oh, I've lost my self-confidence. Oh, I'm putting some weight on," and they're not realising that that's what's happening to them. And if we can catch them early enough and get them to recognise what's going on, then they can start to put things in place to help them through this journey.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, and I think like you know the whole stigma around it, you know, is wrong really. You know, because people might be in relationships where their partner has it. You know, we need to understand it. You know, like okay, us males don't go through it, but it doesn't help the situation almost if you don't understand it or if you're judging that person. Because I think some couples might do that. They might say certain things, be judging. And I think, like you said, corporate wise in businesses as well, especially if people are high up and, like you said, they have to give a presentation or talk to 50 people and they're having a hot flush. And then they're being self conscious, which then probably makes them more anxious, which then doesn't help that situation. So you know, especially if you're working for a company, it's you know like you said, people it's being classed like you know an illness when it's not an illness.
Not an illness. You know, if you take a woman that's at top of the game as an accountant, and there has been a case, and you know she can't afford to make mistakes because these are company accounts that need to be absolutely 100%. But she can, because of the issues that are going on, lack of sleep, anxiety, or all sorts of things that all come in, and there is brain fog, there is confusion because hormones, you know, balance out your body. We are hormones. We're a bunch of hormones that are rushing around, sorting out various tasks that they need to do. So, is it fair for that woman in that short time to lose her job, to be dismissed? Or can we say that she has every right to say, look, can I take some time? Can I work from home? Because if I can work from home, I can have all the doors open. I can have all the windows open. I can be as cool. I can take a break and have a glass of water. And if a job that she has to do that's from 9 till 5, she can do in her own time, whatever works, that opportunity, she should be allowed that time in order to get herself from where she is to where she needs to be. Because it's possible. We can go through that transition. As I say, some more easily than others. But you just need a little bit of support. If somebody had fallen over and had an accident and damaged a physical part of their body, they would be allowed some time for that body to mend, to recover. And the menopause, it's not an illness, but it does need some time just to adjust and balance. And it needs to be given grace, and it needs to have some more understanding, so that people, and Adam, you're absolutely right in what you're saying about couples living together. The rate of divorce that happens around the menopause is very high, and there are a number of reasons why that happens. But one of the saddest reasons is that Mother Nature gave us this incredible hormone, oxytocin. And when whether we have children or not, but female have an abundance of oxytocin because we are carers. When babies are born, the mother is flooded with this oxytocin, and it's a very clever, neat trick of Mother Nature, because babies are pukey, smelly, screaming, sleepless nights, producing little bundles. And if the mother didn't love it unconditionally, is it going to put up with not getting any sleep? No, the mother is going to get, because she loves it. That oxytocin is there. She's never going to leave that little baby. She's never going to not wipe up its sick or clean its pooey bum. She's there. And oxytocin is one of the hormones that can diminish quite significantly with the menopause. So we can have Mr. and Mrs. Jones, who are and they've been rubbing along really happily together, and their life is, and every Thursday night he's had a steak and kidney pie made for him, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the missus says, sorry, and he's like, well, hang on a minute, I had steak and kidney pie. Why can't I have one now? Because I just don't feel like making one. It's like, it's like, and he's like, whoa, hang on a minute, you're just this unreasonable, crazy woman, well, you obviously don't love me anymore because you can't give him, and she's like, and so, he might slope off to the pub and get drunk because he's feeling rejected, and she's feeling really angry because he hasn't understood her, because they haven't communicated, they haven't shared what's going on. The last thing she needs is to not be heard, to not be listened, but maybe she doesn't know what's going on in herself. She just doesn't want to make the steak and kidney pudding anymore. She doesn't want to have to clean up the mess after the kids anymore, or look after elderly parents in quite the same way. There's a huge amount of stuff that goes on, and when oxytocin is diminishing, it's tough to keep on going. If you're having sleepless nights on top of that, you're exhausted. If you're really hot, then your duvet's on, the duvet's off, the duvet's on, the duvet's off. If you don't set up some decent sleep regimes and sleep hygiene, and I always recommend to my ladies, have single duvets, because whatever you do with your duvet, that's fine, but his or her duvet that's next to you can just stay where it is. So you're not disturbing your partner that you're sleeping next to, because if his sleep or her sleep is disrupted as well, then they're going to wake up like bears with sore heads, and so you just get this. You know, the other thing as well with oxytocin and, you know, linking into that is the libido. Um, you can have somebody that's had a very physical relationship, and all of a sudden it's, I am so not interested. And so again, you know, that can be seen as a rejection. It can be very painful. What is a partner supposed to do? You know, this is, we're supposed to have this intimate relationship, and all of a sudden you're saying no. So clearly that's saying that you don't want to be with me anymore. No, not true. It just means that in this moment in time, they haven't got the energy, the wherewithal to engage in that. They are so busy trying to get these hormones balancing out that, you know, a night of passion is way, way down the list of meeting their needs. But unless that's understood by the partner, it just creates this barrier between them. You know, and so on and so on. It just rolls on. For women, aging is a very fearful place to be. If you're working, what are my work colleagues? Can I keep this job? If I'm not sleeping, how can I function? I'm putting on weight. I'm not attractive anymore. I'm not fit anymore. Knock-on effect. My husband, my partner is not going to find me attractive anymore. What's the cliche? You know, he then runs off, or she then runs off with somebody else. You know, none of these are intentional, but it's because people aren't communicating. They're not understanding the severity of what's happening with these hormone changes that are going on. But with some guidance, with some support, that menopause journey can be embraced. And when you come out the other side, you're free. You know, it's, you are wise, and you've got another 50 years in front of you.
No, I completely agree with what you're saying. And it's, you know, like it's interesting, you know, learning about it and thinking about it, because I think, like, you know, men in general, it's not really something that, like me, like, you know, if someone talks about it, or like, you know, we was talking about it, and I was thinking to myself, oh, this is something that is going on. This is something that, you know, say I'm married in the future or something, or I have a wife, whatever, then that is going to happen. So, you know, why pretend that isn't a thing? If it is, you know, why push that under the carpet? You know, learn more about it, understand it. I mean, that's a choice, but I think that's something that, you know, men should look into as well. And I think that's something, you know, that's my opinion. Because if men had something going on, I see it from the flip side as well. Because if men had something going on, you would want the woman to understand what that thing is. It's not going to help the situation if they're just playing it off or not understanding it. And like you said, that communication is key, and that awareness around it, especially in work as well, in relationships. It's all like a knock-on effect in all these different avenues, isn't it? It's not just one thing like work. Work might be one strand of it. Then you've got relationships. Then you've got family. Then you've got yourself and self-image.
I mean, growing old isn't always fun. I mean, you know, it's a challenge, isn't it? You know, but if your hormones are raging, then trying to be logical in amongst all that it can be confusing. And you know, growing old gracefully is a great thing, but it can be, you know, well, do I go grey, or do I have those lines in my hair? That, you know, is it okay that I have a few more wrinkles? You know, eternal youth is something that today's society seems to promote. It's interesting to look at leading female role models of you know, we can have you know, people like Dame Judi Dench. You know, she's out there. She's a grey-haired Oscar-winning
public figure.
Yeah, you know, so she hasn't pretended to be anything other than who she. Helen Mirren would be another one. I mean, Helen Mirren, you know, how fantastic does she look in the I won't say the product, but you know,
Yeah.
there's a moisturizer that you know
Advertisers.
she absolutely promotes it, and she looks amazing.
Mm.
And you know, she's got great hair, and she looks fantastic. You know, this is where women need to look towards. That it is possible, but sometimes we just need a little bit of help, some guidance, and some support. And for many women, because they don't understand what's going on, they continue their life maybe in a less well-being way. And we know that as we get older, we don't digest food, we don't take the nutrition out of food as easily as we do when we're younger. And so we have to look at eating healthy, nutritious food more than we perhaps would have done in our 30s, 20s, and 30s. You know, we have to accept that sugar triggers hot flashes. Now, you know, I've had women that practically wanted to punch my lights out when I've said, you know, you've got to reduce eating that chocolate and stop drinking the red wine just for now. And they're going, they won't take responsibility. They're really angry, thinking that they've caused some of these themselves. And of course, it's not always true. But the one thing I always keep my clients, I get my clients to keep, is a food diary. And so that they can see for themselves a pattern of triggers that are coming off. And foods are key to that. Well-being, we know if you want to be fit and healthy, you know, what you put in, you get out. It's mood and food. You know, if you're feeling low, think about the foods that are going to bring that mood up. And you know, processed foods, high sugary foods are not going to elevate your mood. They're going to make that blood sugar drop through the floor. You have to do as well. And again, this is another one. Take up if you don't exercise, you have to take up some form of exercise. The body needs movement. And I'm not talking about starting to do marathons. I'm talking about 10 minutes of a walk, half an hour on a yoga mat doing some stretches. They help flush out any toxins in there. We also have to think about the products that we use, you know, have paraben-free products, shampoos and things like that. Reduce as many chemicals as you can in your body so that your body can sort out balancing these hormones, not having to divert that job into getting rid of toxic chemicals that are building up in your body. It needs to be as clean and fresh as it can be to do the job. Yeah. So, you know, as any menopause therapist will tell you, it's a holistic approach. And it can be a gentle, comfortable journey. Yes, there can be hiccups along the way, but there are many things that can help with the right guidance, the right information. Stress, you know, that's another big one. And rightly said, you know, all links in. If you're stressed at work, how are you going to balance out those hormones? How can you get rid of that stress when you get home? Yeah, and so on, and then you don't get a good night's sleep, or you haven't slept anyway, and then you've got stress which prevents your sleep, and so on, and we keep going round and round and round. So you can see why women do leave work early. We can see why divorces, why relationships break up. It's a sad story that's out there, but we can change it, and with more people like yourself sort of saying, hang on, yeah, let's put the word out there, then I believe that it will, you know, it'll help and it will really get some momentum
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and I think, like, you know, I really think it's good that you're, you know, you're passionate about this, and you're willing to put it out there, you know, because I think a lot of people probably think, like I said, it's almost like you said, a taboo subject. Some people don't want to talk about it, and I think, you know, it's brave of you for, like, you know, to come out with what you're talking about, you know, with menopause, and that you're passionate about it. And like I said, I think, you know, more needs to be done about it. And I think through platforms like podcasting and social media, people can kind of use that more to put out there. And like you said, it just takes sometimes, you know, one person for people to think, oh yeah, me as well. I'll then talk about it because someone else is talking about it, kind of thing.
It's interesting, isn't it, how the female body can be such a mystery that has to be a secret. I mean, you know, that's the joy of a female body, as well as the sadness about it, that many things are secret, are kept taboo, aren't. And to a degree, that, you know, that's a nice thing. It's not an unpleasant thing, but it has to be understood. And not many women understand their own bodies. So goodness me, it's a big ask for a man to understand a female body when she doesn't really understand it herself.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point, isn't it, as well? Because if that person doesn't quite understand what's going on, or they don't quite understand what you know, understand themselves, then it's going to be hard to communicate that to the person aside them.
Yeah.
I was just thinking as well, came to mind, is that must be difficult for certain cultures as well, because some cultures probably can't, people can't talk about certain things. It's almost like, you know, just get on with it.
Yeah.
Or if they're just like, oh, just get on with it.
You're absolutely right. You know, there are religious dogmas and cultures that you know, women are seen in a very different light, and that would be a very, very different story to try and get this message over.
Yeah.
You know, and it must be so difficult. You know, we know there are some cultures that when the women are menstruating, they're not even allowed to be around men. So to even begin working through any menopausal issues with them would be very difficult. Very difficult.
But like that Meg Matthews, the lady we mentioned who's in the media, she's the one who experienced menopause and she was scared to drive. I mean, that's just one case, isn't it? I mean, I know some people who have had it and they found it hard going to work, especially if they're in a certain position where you have to delegate, you know, and it's like you might not feel 100%, but you've got to appear to be 100%. And that's the clash with it, isn't it? And I think it'll just break the ice a little bit, so to speak, if people understand it. I mean, you think of like mental health in the workplace, people are a lot more understanding of it now. You know, why can't that menopause thing? I mean, that kind of ties into it anyway, because you're going to be experiencing mental health problems, you know, anxiety and things like that through the menopause. So it should tie into it.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the case with that, you know, got too anxious to drive, that would be something that arrived uninvited, with no expectation, and just totally out of the blue. And I suspect what it would start with is apprehension sitting at the wheel, holding onto the steering wheel slightly tighter, butterflies in the tummy, you know, being tied up in a knot in the tummy, and getting to the destination and feeling pretty exhausted. And then, you know, getting back in that vehicle and driving back again, you know, holding on, checking, is that okay? And then the body, what we do is we pattern match. So you then get out of the car and you get back into your home, and the next day you've got another journey planned. And your onboard computer goes back and goes, you know, yesterday, that journey, well, we were a bit anxious. And so it goes, well, do we really want to be anxious again today? Well, okay, well, we have to go on that journey. But the body's always remembered what it felt like yesterday. And so it will create the same kind of anxiety the next day, because you've told the body that there's an issue with this, that you're feeling anxious. And so because it's pattern matched to yesterday's journey, it will produce the same kind of stress hormone. So then you've got some cortisol coming into your body, you've got some adrenaline coming into your body, and away you go again on this journey, feeling really anxious. And so you're now building up a big narrative story of driving makes me feel really anxious. And so it accumulates day after day after day. To the end, the body goes, you know what? Can't do it anymore. And you think, I haven't, there's no logic. I haven't been involved in a car accident. Nothing awful happened, but this accumulation of anxiety is built up and built up and built up until I just cannot cope with this any longer. Social anxiety is incredibly common with menopause ladies for the same, because of the lack of self-worth, lack of self-confidence, sometimes because of the physical changes that they're experiencing, as in some slight weight gain, or but they can go from being a party animal 1 minute to wanting to just stay in, have duvet days and watch DVDs. Well, anybody that's around them is going to think that they've gone crazy. Come on, you're the party girl, come on. And the more pressure, that's being put on, the worse you feel. Because you're going, oh, I feel guilty, I'm letting my friends down, I'm letting this down. But there's a bit of you that goes, oh, I just can't do it. So, we've got guilt then that comes in on top of all that. And then we know that when we feel guilty, it makes us feel more anxious. And so then we're probably not going to get a good night's sleep because we're feeling really bad about the whole thing. And again, we're back on that hamster wheel to nowhere.
Yeah, it's pretty. There's so many angles to it, isn't there? There's so many kind of rabbit holes with it, so to speak, where it takes that person to, sleep, to, work, to how they think about themselves. It's just like a big, massive, like spider web of different things. And it really does kind of open your eyes to it, when you look at it and how it affects that person in all these areas. Like, what do you think, like, this current situation with like the pandemic has probably made it harder for some people who are going through the menopause, do you think? Because I spoke to somebody and they said they didn't want to queue up to go into the supermarket, felt really upset and overwhelmed to, just to go into the supermarket and queue up. Little things like that, like you said, like going for a drive or going and doing something. With this whole situation, it's probably making people more stressed. And if they're going for the menopause, it might be a bit harder, probably.
Well, that's interesting. I think there's probably a paradox in there, because if you are struggling with social anxiety, if you don't want to have to do the meeting and greeting, and if the workplace has been, and all of a sudden you haven't got to go out, there are no parties you can go to, and you can work from home, then in actual fact, for some, that's been okay. It's been a more comfortable time for them. And maybe for some that are experiencing that, if they've been able to press that pause button, take a deep breath, and if they've managed to look at any changes that need to be implemented in that time, that when we come back out of this into the new norm, whatever that new norm will be, it would be quite nice to think that they can manage it, because they've had the opportunity to work at it gently, in a quiet way, because they've had that time at home. They've had the time out, because society pushes us, doesn't it? It's a bit, once you're on that treadmill, it's really hard to get off it. And so you feel that you have to keep going, but by no fault of anybody's at the moment, we've all had to take a step off it in one way or another. Yeah, if you're anxious about your health and well-being, and then the pandemic, that's only going to obviously increase the anxiety. So again, some people are pretty chilled about it, some people are terrified about it, and there are a few people that are in the middle somewhere.
Yeah. No, it's it definitely does, raise your awareness when you think about it. And I think, like you said, it's something that, I mean, it's new to me. I mean, I've had relatives who've, gone through it, and I haven't really thought too much about it, or I just thought it's just one of them. It's just, but like if they're not communicating how they feel and how it affects them, and like you said, that can tie into they might not know what's going on, or it's hard to communicate that across. People can judge sometimes, or say like the odd thing, and we shouldn't really. It's wrong, and yeah, I think through the media and the government and workplaces, being more open about it and understanding it, taking that bit of time just to be there. It's empathy, isn't it? I mean, you want that to be understood. You want to be feel welcomed. Why, like you said, why should a workplace or business or corporation fire somebody because they might feel like they're going through something for the menopause and just replace them with someone else?
Mm-hmm.
I think I remember you said that happened to somebody. Somebody
Yeah.
got fired from their job
Yeah.
because of the menopause, and it was labelled as mental illness. Like, it's crazy. Um, what ages does it happen? Can it happen at like very early on in the 30s, 40s? Like, it
Well,
vary.
that's another really interesting question there, Adam, because we are finding that women are going into the menopause earlier and earlier. The average age is 51, but it can happen anytime before or after that. Um, Historically, it's perimenopause around 45. Little slight changes can begin that unless you're a very self-observing person, you wouldn't perhaps necessarily notice. Um, but they are seeing women now increasingly earlier and earlier. And I think we have to look at the environment and the expectations, what pressures are these people underneath, what toxic chemicals are they being exposed to
Mm,
for this to happen. I mean, stress is definitely a big factor in any mental health. But I
mm,
think with the menopause, we know that stress has a big impact. And stress can come in many different guises. Um,
mm,
you can be a child under stress if you're being bullied at school. You can be a young person under stress because of expectations from their peers or family expectations needing to achieve. We inadvertently expose ourselves to stress, and how we manage that stress is down to the individual, whether they have the capacity to self-soothe and calm and their resilience to it. But if you've got somebody that has had a horrendous childhood, been exposed to high levels of stress and anxiety and fear often, then everything in their body has been compromised. Their autoimmune system has been put under huge amounts of pressure. And so as they go through life, the chances of them not having breast cancer, for instance, we know is very high for people that have been sexually abused.
mm,
So constantly in their childhood, they've been in a very stressful situation. And so, menopause, I think, can be one of those that, not all, again, because we cannot generalize, but
no.
I think, you know, if we had education as young people and you were told that in 50 years' time, you're going to feel like this, and
Mm,
you're going to have this, this, and this. But if you set yourself up today, then some of that experience in 50 years' time is going to be more comfortable,
mm,
less, but it is. You know, but then, does that ever stop somebody smoking?
mm,
There's that It's the, why does somebody start smoking knowing full well that they have a chance of having
Cancer or problems. Yeah, yeah. It's definitely, like you said, it's definitely something that I think, you know, needs to be put into um, the system somewhere. You know, it needs to be some kind of guidance on it, or because it's something that isn't. I mean, I'm a guy, but I mean, it's only something you really hear about other people talk about. It's not really something that people are educated on, probably, unless they research it and they have. It's something like people have to educate themselves on it. If that makes that's great. If that makes sense, that's
certainly at the moment. Um, they have to find what's going on, and as I say, the first port of call generally has been going to their GP, and they will report things like um, insomnia or anxiety or depression, and it's very quickly medicalized, put down as an illness, which it isn't, and they deal with those. Some GPs
yeah,
are more understanding, and then I mean, women have a choice whether they go on HRT or not, and the HRT debate is a huge one. We could talk all day about the
yeah,
pros and
yeah.
cons of HRT, but for some women, it's definitely the right answer because
What's
they can go on the HRT and replaces all the hormones that have been depleted, and that's fine. But we have to look at the long term implications of that. How long could a woman stay on HRT, given that her body naturally should be making these changes at some point, because she's not designed to be having babies at 80 years old, fact.
mm,
So it's whether you want to keep that body in that false state and how long do you want to keep it in that false state. If you're working and your career is dependent on it and there is no alternative, it's definitely HRT is a lifesaver.
mm,
There are other alternatives, and again, you could talk about those, but a lot of them, my first port of call is always look at your lifestyle, look at your health and well-being. Let's address the sleep. Let's reduce the anxiety. Let's clean up the diet. Let's reduce the amount of chemicals that you're exposed to. And then let's have a look, see how you're feeling. Let's see what's going on.
mm,
And at that point, if it's okay, yeah, I'm pretty good on that one. I know that if I have that cheeky chunk of chocolate,
mm,
I might have a bit of a hot flash. And that
mm,
it's you do the risk assessment, or it's a birthday and I'm going to celebrate. I'm going to have some red wine or something. But maybe that night then your sleep is going to be not as good as it would be. But knowing that you've done it and you can get back on track is a great thing. For some women, they can't control it. For some women, it's impossible. For some women, it is. And that's why, getting some help from a menopause therapist really has to be, I think, for many, the way forward. And I think it should be provided by the NHS. I think it should be something that young people are told about at a young age. Whether they take any notice of it, like we've talked about smoking, it's a freedom of choice then, isn't it? But at least,
mm,
forearmed is forewarned.
mm, yeah. No, I agree. I think it's definitely something that needs to be, you know, put into education somewhere. You know, there should be some um, commercial awareness around it. You know, and I think, like you said, if you start giving somebody starts taking antidepressants or starts taking certain drugs um, for menopause, which doesn't even treat menopause, then that person, you know, especially in America, there's lots of crazy, you know, people can be prescribed on 10 different things because they're taking one thing that they need to then take something else and then something else to counteract that. And before you know it, you might get people on 10 or 11 different medications because of menopause, because it's just stemmed from all these different things. So, yeah,
That's gone out into the liver. Oh,
yeah. And then that just causes like more problems. But, yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and I think through this, people can take a lot from it. You know what we've spoken about, what you know, and the work that you do, you know, can really help people. You know, with the mental health, with people going through menopause, and I think it's a really positive thing to be
I
there for
think
people.
before we wrap up, I think
Yeah.
one thing I want to get across is that women should thrive, not just survive.
Mm.
And I think
Mm.
that's the message. I want to say, come on, let's thrive. There's a great life out there. It's a fantastic
Mm.
world that we live in. Okay, a little bit topsy turvy at the moment,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's a great world. It's a beautiful world.
Mm.
Okay, again, a bit topsy turvy, and there's not, but we should be able to embrace it and go, isn't this amazing? Isn't this
Mm.
fantastic? Okay, I know that that's me. You might say cloud cuckoo land because everybody has, there are darker sides of life. I get that, but if we can get out of our own way, if we can see and thrive and let go of things, wow, you can get to the end of the life and say, I had a ball. It,
Mm.
it was a great experience. And just because you've reached a certain age doesn't mean you have to stop having challenges. Doesn't mean that you can't set yourself a goal. How can a dream come true if you don't have a dream? So we
Mm.
all have a journey, and just because we've reached a certain age doesn't mean to say that we have to stop. You can go and climb a mountain. Might not be the biggest mountain in the world, but if you can fit and you can be trained and you can do it.
Mm.
You can do it. Um, and not, oh, I can't because I'm menopausal, or oh, I can't because I'm old, or I can't because of this. And I know that's kind of simplistic because physically there are people that have big questions, but that's why I think if we get into well-being early enough, then we can look after our health. We can look after to the best of our ability. We can keep going what we've been given as a gift.
Mm.
Um, so let's
Yeah.
all be out there thriving, not just surviving.
Yeah. No, that's it. I completely agree with you, and I think like it's what you do with what's happening, isn't it? Like, are you going to become a victim of it and point the finger at it, or are you going to take it and you're going to use it, you know, to like motivate you to do something, about it? I think we have a choice, don't we? And like that we say thriving and surviving. That thought came into my head today, actually, and I was like, are we thriving or surviving? And that's a really good quote, isn't it? It's a really good way because we are, really thriving or surviving, aren't we? It's one or the other. Like,
And we have a choice.
mm, mm,
And really that choice is a thought.
mm,
We can choose to think one way or to think another way.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
so yeah.
no, so I think with what we spoke about is really it's really important. I think it's really really important, and I think it's a great job what you're doing, and I think it's really um, brave of you to talk about it, and I applaud you for talking about it and putting it out there, and I think it's something that even not just women, but I mean men like me, should look more into it. It's made me think more about it, and I've learned more about it through talking to you, and I really appreciate that. And I think not just women should look into. I think men should look into it as well. Everybody should,
Well,
because
we should care about one another, shouldn't we? We're all human beings.
mm,
Um,
yeah,
Gender shouldn't be an issue here. It's
no, no,
just being caring.
mm,
So and thank you for being brave enough to to step into this world of menopause, and you know, at some point, you know, I think it's important for men to learn how to survive menopause, because it's a difficult time in relationships. It's a difficult time for a woman, but it's a difficult time for the family as well. So.
Yeah. No, you're very, very welcome, and I'm very, very humbled and grateful to to have you on the podcast, and it really, really means a lot. And it's nice.
Any time, madam. You know you're welcome.
Yeah. No, same to you. And like, where can people find you on, like, social media and website?
Yeah. So my email address, I said earlier, is Kim Thomas, the number 10 at AOL.com. And my company is A New You Therapy. So if you look at newtherapy.co.uk, you can find me there.
I forgot to mention as well, you're a therapy. What kind of therapy? You're a therapist, but in what areas?
Well, a lot. I work a lot with anxiety, but really promoting the work with women's well-being. That's not to say that I won't work with men, because I have a lot of male clients that are working with some anxiety, and so yeah. So I use a lot of guided imagery. I'm coming from the human givens perspective. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, get people. If they look at human givens therapy, they'll see the approach that I take with my clients.
Yeah. No, it's awesome, and it's really lovely that you're out there helping people, and I applaud you for that. And I'll share your details in this podcast, and I'll promote what you do as well for you.
Lovely, thanks, Adam.
No, you're welcome.
Well, keep safe, and we'll catch up again.
Yeah, of course. Okay. You're very welcome.
Take care.
Take care. Thank you, Kim.